and the 75.
That's crazy.
That's what I said.
Right?
Yeah. And he also doesn't have any Vraskas, which are starting to catch fire. His opponent, Joseph Tewksbury, has both Sires and Vraskas.
All right. Well, I guess that means that Anthony might not be favored in this matchup just because he doesn't have Vraska or Sire Insanity. However, Sire Insanity does hit both players, so if Joseph has a way to kill it, if his hand's not that great, he can let the trigger go on the stack and then putrefy it with the trigger on the stack. Both players lose their hand, and they're just both sitting with whatever board was in play before the Sire Insanity came into play. That's something to know is that, sometimes your hand is just not good, and you don't care about discarding it, so you don't always have to kill the Sire of Insanity before the trigger, especially if your opponent has multiple cards in hand that, you'd much rather them discard. It's like trading your hand for their hand.
Referring to, I believe these players are actually both on XO2, if I recall. I think they're both 502.
Let's take a quick gander at the standings.
Take a quick peek at the parents.
While we're looking
they each
at
have
that,
17 points.
We have Joseph casting Farseek on the play. It's something you really want to do in the Judd Mirror matches. You want to accelerate yourself into Huntmasters and even, maybe some bigger spells like some Planeswalkers or something before your opponent. Being on the play is good, but also having the Farseek on the play, if your opponent doesn't have that to match you, it's going to be very difficult for them to come back into the game.
Yeah, one of the advantages of Anthony's deck list is instead of those Sire of Insanities, he has Arbor Elves to try and steal the play more often. Obviously, that didn't work out for him here. He doesn't have a Farseek, doesn't have an Arbor Elf. He's just behind.
Yeah. So it looked like Joseph frowned pretty hard here when he drew a card, and he doesn't seem very happy. I'm thinking he might be short a land here. If that's the case, then Anthony has a chance to pull back into the game, even though he doesn't have a Farseek. Or I could just be misreading the situation. So, all right. So Joseph discards a Bonfire. Anthony discards a Full Art Putrefy. I get putrefied. Right. I can't stop myself. It just comes out. I'm sorry.
Joseph.
So he does have a land. I was just wrong.
Yeah, he had that fourth land. And he discarded a Bonfire. Maybe what he drew was Bonfire. You always feel a little bummed when you draw a Bonfire and miracling it is just wrong or not good.
So we may get to see a Liliana of the Veil get to ultimate status before Anthony can deal with it.
Joseph throwing a hand up again. His draw step.
Maybe he drew another Bonfire.
He has to feel pretty reasonable.
I would actually want to keep a Bonfire in my hand at this point because if your opponent plays a Huntmaster, this might end up being a fatal mistake. And they should both be discarding simultaneously face down. Anthony is getting a little more information out of this because Joseph just, put it right into the graveyard. But Anthony does have the opportunity, of course, to make his decision, before he reveals any information. It's not his fault.
Anthony debating. He discards Olivia Voldaren. Wow.
Yeah, I mean the Liliana on the other side of the table does make the Olivia look a little bad.
Yeah. It still is one of your more powerful late game cards, but I think Anthony realizes he's going to have to do some serious work in the mid game before he actually gets to a point where he could play Olivia ever.
Okay, well, here he decides to Rakdos return Liliana for 2, keeping it off of Ultimate, as well as getting rid of the last 2 cards in Joseph's hand, which were...
looks like an Olivia and a
Putrefy. It was a multicolored card in Thragtusk. I believe it was a Putrefy, but it could have been a different multicolored card. So he draws for the turn. Hopefully a Huntmaster or something he can play before he discards.
Huntmaster would be backbreaking.
All right, well, there's a Rakdos return for 2, and then a +1 Liliana with no cards in hand is going to put Anthony in a really tough spot.
He's going to be down to 1 card.
With just
depending
4
on
lands.
what that 1 card is, it could be good or it could be bad.
Yeah, I mean, he has a Garruk Relentless, and I think he's probably going to keep that and just play that and then start, trying to, force Joseph to deal with the tokens while he's attacking, Liliana to keep it off of Ultimate.
And honestly, that seems like a perfectly fine tactic, especially with 2 Bonfire of the Damned already gone.
Right.
And Liliana notoriously poor against Garruk.
Yeah, and, the Huntmaster is a good card here to have. But I would definitely want the Garruk over the Huntmaster in this specific scenario.
I agree. It's interesting that he went ahead and pitched the Huntmaster first.
Yeah, I'm sure he was thinking it just didn't matter, and he just knew which one he was going to keep regardless. So
draws an Olivia.
Well, he drew an Olivia, but that still looks pretty bad against the Liliana, regardless of what happens. Garruk is good either way. You can make the argument that playing the Olivia will just get him to -2 to Liliana, and then you'll get to keep your Garruk and cast that next turn. But if he draws a removal spell for the Olivia that's not the Liliana of the Veil, he can kill that +1, and then he gets rid of the Garrick in Anthony's hand too. So.
Joseph's Abrupt Decays just became, or not his Abrupt Decays, sorry, his Mizium Mortars just became significantly better draws than they were before.
Yep.
Putrefy became a real draw step, for example.
Well, it's Huntmaster. Oh, an Olivia of his own.
Olivia.
You know, if he knew the last card in Anthony's hand was a Garrick, I think he 100% would have Legend Ruled first and then just +1'd.
Yeah.
But now he's just going to Garrick and fight the Olivia Voldaren. And it's 5 lands to 4 lands, but one guy's got a Liliana. So pretty close on board.
Yeah, no one's really especially far ahead. Obviously, Liliana is a card, but it's not a super high impact one at this stage of the game.
Yeah, I agree. You know, if Joseph or Anthony either draw a Thragtusk or Huntmaster, and so this is, you know, Joseph is in dire straits now. He needs to draw a spell to keep the Huntmaster from flipping, or else his, you know, Liliana is just going to die.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons I'm personally not a huge fan of Liliana, is it's so much more of a role player than a dominating board presence. At least in matchups like these mid-range green mirrors, compared to, you know, a matchup where banned hexproof, it might, you know, very easily take over.
Right. Or, you know, a Sphinx's Revelation deck where you cast it in the early turns, and then along with Rakdos Return, you're able to just get their whole hand in a single swipe.
Looks like Joseph, I imagine he has to Edict here because he's losing his Liliana if he +1s, plus the card in his hand, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Appears
looks like he passed turn, so...
I think it might be another Liliana. Which would be super awkward.
That's not that bad, as long as Anthony doesn't have a follow-up play. He takes 4, but then he's able to Edict the Huntmaster the next turn. So as long as it's just a pass turn here and not a Thragtusk or something even worse. So
yeah.
All right, well, playing the Dragon Soul Summon, he's playing around Olivia with a Liliana with a +1. Olivia, Liliana, tongue-tied.
It's tough. It's tough out there. And it looks like I was right, and it was another Liliana.
I have a new respect for all these people who do this commentary. I already had a lot of respect, but now I have a new respect. It's hard to say all the names of the cards over and over again.
It is. It'll get trickier tomorrow. You got to add in the Dragon's Maze. You up to speed on your Dragon's Maze commons?
I am mostly up to speed.
Good.
It's the split cards that I don't know what they all do, because they all have 2 names. And I know, you know, if they said... it's the card that does X and Y, I'm like, oh, it's that one. I know what that one does. I've seen it a bunch. But like, if someone, like, I didn't know what Ready and Willing was, lifelink and the Indestructible.
Yep.
Like, because when we talked about it in playtesting and stuff, it was just the split card that gives Indestructible and, you know, and lifelink. So I peeled Huntmaster to here, not bad. Opting to not +1 because he doesn't want to discard the card in his hand. Even though that would give him a potential Edict effect.
Yeah, I believe the card in his hand is actually an Olivia. I thought I saw him draw. I could have seen the Huntmaster. That might be my mistake.
Yeah.
He's apparently there was a difference in life total.
Yeah.
He's confirming. I have this wolf, so that means I gain 2 life, which is correct. You can't get half of Huntmaster's trigger.
Unfortunately. All right, so
He draws a card.
I really wish we could see what was in their hand, man. It's tilting. It's just, well, I guess it's kind of like Christmas morning every time they play a spell.
5. Thragtusk. Matches wits with Thragtusk.
Yep. No, they're just going to be button heads. While maybe Huntmaster flips, maybe doesn't. Who knows? Spells could be cast or not. I don't know.
Yeah. Joseph appears to be debating his Liliana plus.
I mean, unless your card is a Farseek, you know, you play it if it's a land, but the Farseek would be the only card there where I would +1. Every other card has the potential to do a lot more in his deck.
I think that's fair to say. I might be willing to pitch a Sire also.
Oh, well, that one ain't bad. Gets that card that he was thinking about discarding.
It was an Olivia. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was probably not correct to play the Thragtusk over the Olivia.
Sure. Especially 23 life.
Sure. But they do both have a lot of ways to kill the Olivia, so...
Or I should say 18.
Alright, so yeah, he did redirect the Rakdos Return to the Liliana, so life total stayed the same. I would expect an attack here with both the Thragtusk and the Wolf, with a threat of a Wolf Run activation, and then probably just passing turn and flipping the Huntmaster, unless he drew some giant card that, you know, like Garrick to draw 5 or something like that. Nope, just going to take a shock, send out that Wolf Run.
Yep, that puts Joseph down to 21, and he will attack with everyone. Wow, that's aggressive.
Bold move, Cotton.
Yeah, Anthony can't turn down eating up that Huntmaster, even though it is trading with the front half of his Thragtusk. I think I'm with you, though. I would have wanted to keep the Huntmaster once I Wolf Run, it'll be flipping into a 4/4, and that will hold off the Beast token that would have been generated by this by a trade with any other creature.
Yep. Not to mention, you know, if you build up your hand with like a couple of junk cheap spells like a Farseek and a removal spell, you can have a turn where you can reflip it, you know. So, gonna get in for a lot of damage here. Wolf Run for 3. We're gonna trample for 2, and then deal with 2 with the Wolf and 5 with the Thragtusk.
Yep, so that puts Anthony down to 16. And
Left
he has
him
a
with a
beast
beast.
token, no Wolf Run. He's falling behind.
Yep.
Can't attack. He's just going to repeat his blocking turn. This time, I imagine on the front of the Thragtusk, or maybe the Wolf.
Seems like the Thragtusk, because
I
then a
feel like
bonfire
so.
off the top or
Right.
a Mizzy Mortars or something is going to, you know, stabilize completely. Battle.
Snap blocks the Thragtusk.
You get some Wolf Run action.
Gets
So
pumped.
trample for 5 and 2 from the Wolf, so 7 down to 9, and he's left with a Beast. So
Land off the top is threatening lethal.
Yeah, any mana or any burn spell basically is threatening lethal. It's going to be pretty... I mean, Anthony basically just needs a Bonfire or a Thragtusk to get back in it. I guess Huntmaster would be okay too, but a pass turn is not great unless it's a Putrefy to deal with whatever he targets with the Wolf Run.
Yep. Joseph considering his options, probably doing some math. Looks like he's gonna just Rakdos Return. That'll Sire of Insanity. Okay.
That is cray.
I feel like I would probably attack first just to see what I'm getting into, but Anthony drew a Blood Crypt. Is holding that to try and probably bluff Joseph off of doing anything, but.
All right. Well, now we're gonna go to a game 3, the Decider, the George W. Bush of games.
And they're down to 14 minutes on the clock. Anthony,
He called himself the Decider. That was the joke.
Anthony wary of the clock as he has already accumulated 2 draws. We saw one of them on camera, an unintentional draw in another Jund mirror.
How do these Jund guys draw, man? All you do is cast spells.
I mean, yeah, I usually just count the lands I have and then check to see if any of my casting costs match up.
Yeah.
If 2 of them match up, you know, I cast both.
You know that game you played when you were a baby, where you put the blocks in the holes and you had like the circle and the square and stuff like that, and you would just move it back and forth until it fit in one of the holes. I feel like that's the same way with your mana costs for Jund. You just like, all right, so I have 5. Which of these costs 5 or less? All right, so I can cast, all right, the one that costs the most, and you just pick that one and you put it into play.
You know, I think we could test this theory if we tried to program a computer to play Jund.
It would be very easy. and then it's always Miracle Bonfire. You know, even if it's only for like 2.
Yeah.
You know, that you would just have to program the computer to Miracle Bonfire. You know.
Sure.
And you know, the more mana you get, the more bonfires. Like, well, I could just bonfire. You know, spend 5 mana bonfire for 2. You know, to just do nothing except deal 2 to the opponent, or I could cast an Olivia Voldaren. That's when it starts to get a little sketchy, computer. Let me stop you right there.
Yeah, I'm not saying that a computer would be a world-class Jund player, but I think we could probably get one competitive. You know, he could be in the money at an SCG
I feel like we're bagging
Open.
on Jund players.
I'm not. Like, I think that Jund is a completely reasonable deck. I think that it's a deck that requires more skill in the building.
That's true.
Than in the piloting.
I
I think that a
can
lot
agree
of
with
your play decisions are not so difficult. You're just sequencing the cards that you drew, but you had to choose the right cards in your deck. We can see in this matchup, you know, Anthony has, you know, no Sires and Arbor Elves, whereas Joseph has Sires and no Arbor Elves. Generally, I'm just going to play whatever Jund deck Reed Duke tells me to. That seems to be a winning strategy in general.
Yeah, I mean, Hillman, you know, Owen Turnwald have been doing very well with Jund over the past couple months in various tournaments. You know,
At Somerset, Owen, Reed, Josh Rabbits, Huey Jensen, and Taya Steele, I believe, all played the same Jund list. I think the same 75. Maybe they differed a little bit. I don't think they did, though. And I know that together they accumulated a win record of over 70%.
Wow.
Against the field at Somerset, which was no small feat. 10-round tournament, you know, over 400 players. And Taya started off undefeated before, you know, falling to 6-4, I think, something like that. So tough beats. But Huey finished top 16 with 8-2. Rabbits was on 7-3, and Reed, I believe, also finished top 16 or something very close to it. Owen obviously finishing in second.
Yeah.
70% is nothing to sneeze at from 5 people.
I mean, that's true. I mean, he probably drew his bonfires a little more timely than his compatriots. Perhaps that was the deciding factor. A little bit of luck involved with Jund sometimes. Cards like Bonfire of the Dam are very sporadic. Sometimes they're the best card you could possibly draw. Sometimes you miracle on turn 1 and you never have time to cast it because your opponent put a Thalia into play or something.
That's
like
when I
that.
draw it. So.
Oh yeah, you're so unlucky. What are you, Ephro now? Just sad panda.
My last cube, I actually drew Bonfire a number of times. However, I was quite happy casting it for 5.
That's fair. All right, so we got a Arbor Elf.
And here's that Arbor Elf we talked about. It's working the advantage for Anthony now, as he has effectively already cast a Farseek before Joseph even made a play.
Yep. Although the downside is that Arbor Elf will die to a Bonfire or something like that, whereas Farseek, not vulnerable to that kind of play.
Yeah, it can definitely get swept up. You want to take advantage of the fact that you have the Arbor Elf by casting cards like Dead British Tanner, Garrick, or whatever, to just get cards that are huge and high impact onto the board, so that once you lose the card advantage due to a Bonfire, you're not really suffering.
Yeah. Mana Acceleration, pretty key in this matchup, just so you can play your big spells first. If you can ramp into Rakdos Return for like 4 or 5 before your opponent even has a threat in play, the game is over. And Anthony already has 4 mana. Going into his turn 3, he's going to have access to 5. He can cast a Thragtusk or a Garrick, and then if he follows that up with a Rakdos Return, there's no way Joseph's going to be able to come back.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Imagine if he had access to Sire of Insanity. That's one of the strengths as well. Mizium Mortars on the Arbor Elf. Joseph, he knows what's up. Got to fight that Mana War. If he could discard a Mizium Mortars to counter a Farseek, he'd do it in a heartbeat, and this is almost the same.
Oh, and Anthony didn't have a 4th land, so the tides have turned.
They have, in fact. Suddenly falling behind, Anthony, despite being on the play, Joseph has equalized the mana advantage. Liliana.
Yep, and Liliana is especially brutal when you're stuck on lands, because sure, you're like discarding these spells you can't cast, but if you draw lands, you start to play them, and then you still can't cast the spells, or you've discarded the spells already that you wanted to cast. Jund is like in a kind of a sweet spot where they happen to have 4-drops in their deck, so it's not quite as devastating. If they discard their like 5-drop, they can still play their 4-drop. This seems aggressive.
I imagine Joseph just doesn't have anything else to do this turn, although he discarded Rootbound Crag, which is really weird.
Yeah,
I would assume his hand is just packed with lands if he did that, so maybe he literally doesn't have a spell he can play?
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, you still, like, if he just waits till he has 5 mana, he can use the Bonfire for 5 mana to do this effectively the same thing, but also kill Huntmaster potentially.
Sure.
And here he opts not to use the Liliana, so I think I would have just
discarded the Bonfire?
Yeah.
Yeah. He basically traded a Shock for a card in Anthony's hand, which I think a Shock is probably worse than most of the cards in Anthony's hand.
Yeah, and it wasn't even Shock; it was Shock that only hits the dome. So it was
sure.
Aggressive.
Lava Shock.
Yeah,
I think that's actually a card. That probably
Lava Shock. Yeah.
For all I know, it
Zap.
is.
Well, maybe he's got another Bonfire, and he'll sure show us.
Even if he did, I think I agree with just discarding that one rather than going into. Although maybe he's just frustrated. He fail miracled 2 in the last game. He's just like, you know what? I'm on camera.
Yeah,
we're gonna miracle this Bonfire. That is what
it's like he's using all his miracles too early, though, man.
Cass and Olivia again debating the.
Yeah, he's just gonna go for the Edict effect. What's interesting here is that the Rakdos Keyrune can basically kill the Liliana for free. There's no way that Olivia Voldaren is going to just trade here, but a cast Olivia Voldaren is going to Legend Rule the other one,
and that allowing
allowing the Huntmaster to kill the Liliana freely.
And we saw, this was, it's easy to see from here, obviously, but that single turn where Joseph didn't +1 enabled this to happen.
Yes.
Where his Liliana is now off the board. There's just a Huntmaster out there.
Yep.
Anthony has no cards in hand. He wouldn't have had one of the cards he's played if that Liliana had gone up.
Yep, so able to maybe stabilize with another Liliana.
Sorry,
Anthony,
he has a bunch of cards.
Anthony could spend another turn to, crack into the Liliana. Opts instead to get a Garrick into play and start making some beast tokens. Not a bad play.
I thought Anthony had run. See, it seemed like Anthony had run out of cards very fast. He was actually just holding his hand off camera. He has, I believe, 3 cards now left still in his hand.
He has a lot. He missed some. He missed some land drops. So, all right. So Joseph here.
There's a second Castle Group
he probably has a lot of options. He was stuck on 4 lands for a minute. If he passes turn here, I'd be very surprised.
Looks like he's going to do something.
Well, it ain't
Perhaps
Dreadbore.
another Olivia?
Could be a Huntmaster. Leaving open these two.
Yeah. He made sure to leave open that Rubank. That was kind of my tip off on the Olivia.
Yeah.
And now
I was
he's
just hoping he had
debating
Dreadbore on the
Olivia.
backswing to take care of that Garrick, but
Yeah, Dreadbore would be a nicey, but it doesn't look like he's got it. He's just going to pass without boosting the Olivia, or the Liliana.
yeah, you did too.
That is tricky.
Well,
I think I did
actually,
it just because you said it.
He could lose to either. Oh yeah, it's never your fault when you make a mistake. It's always your opponent's fault.
I felt like I was compelled to join you. Solidarity.
Oh sure.
Solidarity in the booth.
Yeah, I don't like that deck very much, so I'm going to pass.
Anthony has drawn another land, and it looks like he has double Huntmaster in his hand. And something else that costs 5, a Thragtusk.
Yep, and I think this may be the point where the game breaks, because Garrett's going to be able to allow Anthony to draw 5 cards, which is going to help him find ways to deal with both Olivia Voldaren, potentially deal with the Liliana, but I don't think Liliana is even much of a problem anymore.
No.
Sitting at 1, never going to ultimate. Even if he makes you sacrifice a creature, you still have a lot of ways to interact with the rest of the board. So
the only thing Joseph can really do here is if he has Rakdos' Return as his last card, maybe he can hope to draw a land, Rakdos' Return, and then boost the Liliana, and kind of turn back the tide. But I think if he had Rakdos' Return, he would have just cast that last turn. So it's reasonable to say that he doesn't have that card.
All right, so Olivia should get a 1/1 counter. There we go. If we can get a bigger die on there, that would be perfect, so we can read it more easily. So the Thragtusk now a vampire. So honestly, if Anthony doesn't have a way to kill this Olivia Voldaren, it could easily take over the game. I find it hard to believe he doesn't have a way to answer it though with the 5 cards he just drew.
Yeah.
But I mean, sometimes you just draw 5 lands and die, so things happen.
Definitely happens. I've seen more than a fair share of players die to Garrick Primal Hunter, or die after using Garrick Primal Hunter because their cards just weren't good enough.
Yeah, sometimes your Garricks are good, but your deck's bad.
I would say the deck is perhaps disobedient.
I got nothing. That was
Got nothing?
no.
I mean, it's a junk deck. It's filled with good cards. That's the whole thing, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
That's the theory, at least.
Sure.
The premise of the deck.
So he's opting to, looks like, cast a spell here as opposed to just stealing the Thragtusk. Maybe like a Huntmaster. He might even be just like, killing the Beast token with 6 damage, or using, the 3 pinks from Olivia. That'll make his Olivia into a 7/7, which is pretty threatening since Anthony is at 21, so he could just attack Anthony 3 times. If Anthony has a Thragtusk to gain some life, it might change the clock a little bit. Alright, so he does just steal the Thragtusk. If he had, I don't think it mattered whether or not he waited until his opponent's turn or anything like that, so.
No, probably not.
Do you want to +1 your Olivia? I find it hard to believe that Olivia is like great in a matchup where you never want to +1 it, because it seems like he's had it in play a lot and hasn't +1 it very much. I mean, obviously it's a great card, but in this matchup, if you're not using it to discard, it's pretty terrible when the Edict effect is getting things like Thragtusk and half of a Huntmaster.
Yeah, I haven't been a big fan of her as I've watched her. I've seen many board states that were like equivalent, except one player had Liliana, but it didn't seem like that player was far enough ahead to really justify the use of the Liliana. I would have much preferred it just be some other random card.
And as you can see, Anthony also doesn't think it's very important and decides to attack Joseph instead of the Liliana.
He's got 6 cards. At least 2 of them are bad, so he's fine. He gets his Thragtusk back after putrefying Olivia.
And a Japanese foil Huntmaster of the Fells. That's pretty.
Well, Joseph, as we know, has already miracled 3 bonfires in this match. He's going to be wanting to miracle a 4th one in a hurry.
All right.
That's not it.
Brick. It would be funny if he miracled a bonfire and forgot to miracle it. And then that was the turn where he really needed to. Just forgot. See, I think that would be funny. He would feel really bad. What are you gonna do?
You evil demon. Joseph playing Huntmaster into a Huntmaster. Normally really awkward as far as situations go because your opponent can simply pass turn and flip to kill yours.
Yep.
However, it can sometimes be a reasonable play if you're falling behind your opponent's far ahead on cards, because then they're not casting all those cards that they have, and they're probably not attacking you either. So you can maybe buy a little space. I've seen it happen.
All right. Well, it seems like Joseph left in his abrupt decays, which I don't think are great in the matchup, but I mean they're not terrible. Opponent has a Liliana active that's getting big. It's fine. Kills a Flip Huntmaster. Kills a Flip Garrick. Kills Rakdos Kirun, which he's seen. Kills Mana Guys, which he also saw. But I'd much rather have maybe a slightly stronger card since abrupt decay is pretty narrow.
Yeah, I don't think I would be keeping them in here. It kills, as far you listed off the things, it's like Arbor, Flipped Huntmaster, Wolf Token, Liliana, Beast Token. Yeah. You're not generating any kind of like positive attrition value when you're killing any of these cards, the possible exception of the Liliana.
Yeah. Here I think is, okay, so there's actually two sides of this coin. So Joseph could see that Anthony's just going to flip his Huntmaster and kill his. However, if he decides to block with a Huntmaster, then Anthony doesn't have to flip his Huntmaster, and he can just cast whatever other spell he wants to.
Yep.
All right, so now we're getting a little school here, getting a little how the stack works, etc.
Yeah, Anthony flips Huntmaster, kills the other Huntmaster and the Liliana of the Veil on Joseph's side of the board, leaving him with nothing but lands and no cards in his hand.
All right, it's got to be Bonfire. You get caught up. No. Not a Bonfire.
Not a Bonfire. Nope. Anthony is not caught up in anything.
I would have been way more excited if this were a Bonfire because I would have windmill slammed it and probably thrown it at my opponent.
Question is it something that can buy him a turn of life to try and peel the Bonfire again?
Well, there doesn't seem like there are that many cards that do that, especially because Anthony has a full grip as well. Still sitting pretty from those cards with Garrick. So, or is he out of card? No, yeah, he just put his. He keeps doing that.
And he keeps doing it. It's tricky. Yeah, he's gotten us a couple times.
Come on, buddy.
Right. He's attacking, waiting to see what his opponent does. I smell like a Putrefy. Yep.
He's gonna kill that Huntmaster more than likely.
Yep. Killing Huntmaster will put him down to 1 life.
I guess actually his out here is probably just Bonfire, and
so maybe he should kill the Rakdos.
This play here with killing that instead. So he takes 9 down to 2, and now there is no card he can draw to win because Bonfire will still leave him with a Beast token and he'll be dead.
That's correct.
So this is turn 0 of turns. Joseph goes to a very low life total, and it doesn't look like he's going to be able to get out of it.
No. 6 slime. He's down to 1 red source, but that's all you need for a Bonfire. So.
Yeah, but as we said,
maybe we get some flash now. Quietly into that good night. It looks like.
Dude, I go down fighting every time.
Siren
I would have cast it. I'd be like, you discard your hand. Good game.
Yeah. Show him.
Yeah. So
let me see.
Anthony Zamberlan takes it down.